In 1972, we left the moon. Not because we conquered it, not because there was nothing left to find, but because we decided, quietly, not to go back.
Right away, Houston.
The crew of Apollo 17 were the last humans to see Earth rise over that silent, gray horizon. And for 50 years, no one followed. That's strange, isn't it? The greatest frontier in human history was abandoned, just like that. And yet, we never stopped looking up. Long before rocket science and mathematics could go the distance, we imagined going there. In the 2nd century, a writer named Lucian of Samosata imagined sailing to the moon, nearly 2,000 years before NASA even existed. It was fantasy. It was impossible. And yet, now the same dream is taking on a new name, Artemis II, and we're getting ready to slingshot back towards the lunar surface. Not just to orbit, but to ask a question we've been pondering for thousands of years. Why have we always dreamed of going to the moon? And once we did, why did we leave? Join me as we unravel all this and much more and enter the Codex Legendarium. I'm Shelby Melanson. Apollo 11, a legendary flight and the culmination of more than a decade of NASA ingenuity. But it was more than just the US bid to win the space race. It was the fruition of an ancient dream.
Armstrong is on the moon. Neil Armstrong.
You've heard it before.
One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
And just like that, on July 20th, 1969, for just 21 hours and 36 minutes, humans were on the moon. 650 million people watched Commander Neil Armstrong say those legendary words as he took his first steps in the Sea of Tranquility, with lunar module pilot Edwin Buzz Aldrin closely behind. It was a moment of national celebration and a unifying moment of human achievement. The materialization of humanity's greatest dream. So, why did the most ambitious adventure in history just stop? Did we lose our faith? Did the moon simply become a been there, seen that? And now, is the dream of space still alive? Apollo 11, though the most famous moment in the Apollo program's history for obvious reasons, was only one of 17 missions. 13 of them sent human beings toward the stars, starting with Apollo 7, bringing astronauts into low Earth orbit for the first time in 1968, and narrowly avoiding a tragic end just 2 years later when an oxygen tank exploded aboard Apollo 13 and 3 astronauts transformed a lunar module named Aquarius into a lifeboat and safely rode it home. But even that didn't deter us. Apollo moon landings continued on throughout 1972, but after that, we quietly stopped. A strange cultural indifference took over. Politics and the public lost interest, investment followed suit, and a hush fell over the once cheering space exploration crowd. The final 3 planned Apollo missions were just canceled. Did the dream of the moon die? NASA cited budget cuts, the urgency of nuclear deterrence, highlighted by rockets during the Cold War, the end of the space race with the Soviet Union, and fears that, since we'd done it already, the juice was no longer worth the squeeze, i.e. the risk to human life. But if that was true, why now, after 54 years, are we going back? Artemis II is on the launch pad at the time of writing this episode, though it is scheduled to go back inside for repairs before its real launch. But soon, it will head up towards the moon. Not to land, just to investigate, highlight equipment readiness, and pave the way for Artemis III, which will land on the surface. But to understand Artemis and the dream of reaching the moon, we have to go backward. Way backward. The dream of getting to the moon came way, way before rocket science. For my sci-fi fans out there, you're gonna love this one. The earliest surviving story, at least in Western literature, that speculates about going to the moon comes unsurprisingly from ancient Greece. Sometime around the 2nd century AD, a writer named Lucian of Samosata wrote what's considered the first ever sci-fi novel ever written, called True Histories, or True Stories, depending on your translation, and named ironically because the book opens by saying that everything in it is a tall tale. Quote, "Things I have neither seen nor experienced nor heard tell of, that do not in fact exist and could not ever exist at all." Yeah. He did this essentially to make fun of the more fantastical tellings of mythology of his day, especially Homer's. Yeah, Odyssey, I'm looking at you. But in any case, the story goes like this. Lucian and his traveling companions sail past the Pillars of Hercules, the end of the known world and the gateway to the unknown at the time. From there, they get lost in a storm, swept up by a whirlwind or waterspout, which blasts them to the moon. From there, they encounter a ton of bizarre creatures. Gigantic fleas, birds with lettuce as wings, men who sweat high-quality milk, and whose noses drip honey. Yeah, I know. And an enormous 3-headed vulture used as a battle mount. Because there was also a war going on between the residents of the sun and the moon. Yeah. As wild as this story is, and even being written as obvious satire, it definitely reflects humanity's curiosity and fantastical inspiration about our closest celestial neighbor. Around the same time, a Greek novel called The Incredible Things Beyond Thule briefly tells of a trip to the moon in its 9th episode. The moon is described as a bright and pristine, pure world, and while there, the protagonist meets mythical and wondrous creatures and is granted a wish by a sibyl, what we would call an oracle or a prophet today. The philosopher Plutarch also wrote something literally called On the Face of the Moon, though it's more about exploring the face-like appearance of the moon and its composition rather than traveling there. Fun fact, it ends in a cool myth about the moon being the reimagined home of Hades and Persephone, the king and queen of the underworld. According to an epic poem called The Frenzy of Orlando, written in the 1500s, Renaissance Italy, the moon is basically a storage unit for all things lost on Earth. Interestingly, that includes the sanity of people who go nuts. In the story, when a knight travels there trying to reclaim the wits of his friend who was driven mad by love, he discovers it's home to a grand palace, overseen by the Fates, time itself, and magical verses of poetry. Over in the East, Japanese legend tells of a lumberjack, an old bamboo cutter who finds a baby girl growing inside a stalk of bamboo. He takes her home, raises her as his own daughter with his wife, and eventually she becomes so beautiful that even the Emperor of Japan wanted to marry her. But she rejects them all, and eventually a heavenly deity descends to take her back to the moon, her birthplace and true home. For Studio Ghibli fans out there, this story might sound pretty familiar since it went on to inspire the film The Tale of the Princess Kaguya. Fast forward to the 1900s. One of the world's most famous silent films, 1902's A Trip to the Moon, paints the journey of 6 astronomers as they blast off to the lunar surface. The twist? Their spacebot of choice gets launched by way of none other than a gigantic cannon, to the delight of a giant cheering crowd, because of course. From there, the rocket lands directly in the eye of the man in the moon, much to his displeasure, but creating one of the most iconic stills of early filmmaking. After some adventures there in a very, very surreal world, we're talking about giant mushroom trees and stars with human faces on them, the astronomers capture a king, escape back to their pod, and plummet back to Earth, where they're celebrated as heroes. Okay, so there are a ton of very old stories that speculate about what adventuring to the moon would be like. Way, way before we theoretically had the means to do it. But interestingly, all of them, aside of that first one, have one distinct thing in common. Not only is the moon a kind of reservoir of knowledge and a symbol of wonder, It's also the home of something magical, divine, or otherworldly, which changes the idea of getting there from a mere feat of engineering to something a bit more profound. The moon isn't just a space rock. It's the nearest other world, the closest outpost to the gates of exploring the cosmos. And that wonder is what drove the ancient stories, plus a whole lot of modern ones. But even then, if the moon is unreachable as it was for the telling of these stories, why do we fixate on the unobtainable? If you ask me, my favorite modern moon travel story explains it best. In the final episode of the series Cyberpunk Edge Runners, main characters Lucy and David fulfill a lifelong dream and a promise.
I'm gonna take you there myself, fly you to the moon. That's a promise.
In the end, they make it there via a simulation, enjoying zero-G, strolling past astronauts, and borrowing a moon rover. But most importantly, escaping the harshness and ill fate of Earth, the dystopian night city where they live, even just for a little while. It's a moment of quiet, of romance, and of hope for better days. So, why do humans fixate on unreachable possibilities? Is our desire to explore built into our DNA? Or is the moon more than just a destination, but perhaps a mirror for some kind of transcendence that we hope to find there? Back to modern-day launch pads, after more than half a century, we, as in human beings, are finally going back to the moon. Like we talked about before, Artemis II will soon be on its way, and it's essentially a late-stage test run before Artemis III and its crew touches down for a full lunar landing sometime in 2028. Which poses one really big question. What's the main goal once we get there? It's impossible to deny the resemblance between the Apollo and Artemis missions, especially since they're twins in Greek mythology. And the argument could be made that we're in yet another Cold War-style space race right now. But this time, there's a big shift. Instead of leaving footprints and planting flags, Artemis is expected to pave the way toward long-term, sustained human presence on the moon. Yes, we're talking about a permanent base camp, and the goal is to make that a reality by the 2030s. That's not far from now. To do all that, we're working on ways to use the resources we find on the surface as building materials, fuel, and also to create long-term life support systems for astronauts and human visitors. But with those human visitors comes business, especially commercial space travel. And besides transportation companies like SpaceX and Blue Origin, others are already planning another use for the lunar surface. A startup from San Francisco, California called Grew Space is taking reservations for the peak of lunar luxury, a stay in its planned moon hotel. Version 1 is set to inflate, yes, inflate, on the moon by 2032, and it will have room for roughly 4 guests. Well, version 2 will be permanently constructed out of moon rock, regolith, later on. Booking your stay will cost you up to $1 million, which will probably pale in comparison to the entire cost of your arrival and departure flights. Also, another fun side note, the company's website outlines a list of top secret goals, and the last and ultimate bullet point on the list is to push humanity to level 3 on the Kardashev scale. This cracked me up when I first saw it. The scale measures how much energy a civilization can harness from its home planet to a star to an entire galaxy at level 3. Humanity technically isn't even a type 1 yet. If you want to hear more about this in a future episode, let me know. Besides lunar luxury, there's also plenty of talk about not just scouring the moon for resources to build with, but to mine, excavate, and even export them back to Earth as a business venture. Or, at minimum, use the lunar surface as a springboard to help futuristic mining operations get to valuable asteroids quicker. At the top of that list is asteroid 16 Psyche, found to contain an insane amount of valuable metals like iron, nickel, and platinum, and gold. And it's worth an estimated $10 quintillion. That is the number 10 with 18 zeros after it. All of that begs the question, Where is the line between exploration and infrastructure? Or is there one? And maybe more importantly, when we turn myth into real estate, does it lose its magic? So, back to the original question, is the dream of space and going to the moon still alive? If you ask me, the answer is yes. Is space becoming more commercial? Yes. Did public enthusiasm for moon travel drop off a cliff after the adrenaline-filled patriotic rush of the 1960s space race? Yes. Does that take away the magic of exploring the cosmos? Anyone who's looked through a telescope lately, or visited a dark site for an astronomy viewing party, or watched a rocket launch at Florida Space Coast, or California or Texas, or anywhere else in the world for that matter, or even just walked outside into their backyard at night and noticed the enormity and vastness and beauty of the night sky, they will probably say no. It's true, the more familiar, more known something is, the less mysterious it becomes. But if you ask me, it's a matter of scale. Whether we put a hotel on the moon or not, whether we mine its dark side for resources or not, whether it's a springboard for future exploration or not, we've barely dipped our toe into the cosmos. We've barely left Earth in the grand scheme of things. There's just so much of space we haven't seen. So, while the probably innate, perhaps even God-given desire to explore is within our very human nature, it's spurred on by a relentless pursuit of proving our imaginations right. That other worlds are fantastical and different and like nothing we've ever experienced yet. That there's magic out there, even just in the form of twinkling far-off stars. Ancient Greece, Renaissance Italy, and Heian Japan imagined it. Apollo proved it was possible, and Artemis is going back. Maybe the moon was never the destination at all. Maybe the dream is. And maybe Artemis isn't about going back. It's about remembering who we are when we look up. What do you think? Is the dream of space and of going to the moon alive? Are you following the Artemis mission? And what do you think the real meaning of and inspiration behind exploring the cosmos is? I would love to hear your thoughts about this in the comments. And if you have an idea for something you'd like to see a future episode on, let me know. And of course, if you enjoyed this deep dive into mysteries, myths, culture, and science, please take a second to like and share this video. And if you want to see more, subscribe. It really helps to get the word out there. Until next time, stay curious. Thank you.
I'd like to just let what I believe history will record, that America's challenge of today has forged man's destiny of tomorrow. And as we leave the moon in Taurus literal, we leave as we came, and God willing, as we shall return, with peace and in hope for all mankind.